December 1944. Europe is frozen in the grip of one of the harshest winters on record. In the dense, snow-covered forests of the Ardennes, the Allied advance has stalled. And then, the unthinkable happens. Hitler launches a massive, desperate counteroffensive, Operation Watch, on the Rhine, what we now call the Battle of the Bulge. Over 250,000 German soldiers, supported by elite panzer divisions, smash through a thinly held section of the American lines. The surprise is total, the initial chaos overwhelming. At the heart of this maelstrom is a small Belgian town, a critical road junction called Bastogne. Holding this town is the American 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. They are completely surrounded, outnumbered, running low on ammunition, food, and medical supplies. The weather is so bad that Allied air support is grounded. The situation is dire. The 101st is in a fight for its very survival, and Wheatim, the fate of the entire Allied front in the west, hangs in the balance. Meanwhile, 100 miles to the south, one of the most audacious and controversial figures in military history receives the news. General George S. Patton, Jr., commander of the U.S. Third Army. While other commanders are reeling from the shock of the German assault, Patton sees something else. Not just a crisis, but an opportunity. An opportunity to trap and annihilate the German armies that have extended themselves so deeply into Allied territory. On December 19th, in a smoky, tense meeting at a bunker in Verdun, the Allied High Command gathers. General Eisenhower asks his commanders what they can do. When it's Patton's turn, he drops a bombshell. He declares that he can disengage 3 of his divisions from their current fight, wheel them a full 90 degrees to the north, and launch a counterattack towards Bastogne. How soon? Eisenhower asks. Patton's reply is legendary. As soon as you're through with me. He promises to attack in 48 hours. The other generals in the room are stunned. Some are openly skeptical. Moving an entire army, over 130,000 men and thousands of vehicles, in the middle of a brutal winter, over icy roads, while still engaged with the enemy, seemed impossible. It was a logistical nightmare of epic proportions. To turn an army that S-phase east and have it attack north in 2 days was unheard of. It defied all military convention, but Patton wasn't a conventional general. In fact, Patton had anticipated this very moment. 3 days before the meeting, sensing the gravity of the German offensive, he had his staff begin drawing up 3 separate contingency plans for a northward attack. He was already thinking several moves ahead of everyone else. So when he made his audacious promise to Eisenhower, it wasn't a bluff. It was a calculated plan already in motion. The order goes out. The Third Army is to pivot. It's a Herculean task. Divisions like the 4th Armored, the 26th Infantry, and the 80th Infantry have to pull out of their current battles, turn their entire columns north, and begin a forced march through the ice and snow. The soldiers are exhausted, freezing, but their morale is high. They know their objective: relieve the boys at Bastogne. This was Patton's Red Ball Express, a relentless, non-stop convoy racing against time. Engineers worked frantically to keep the roads open, clearing snow and repairing bridges, while truck drivers drove for days with little to no sleep. Inside Bastogne, the situation is getting worse by the hour. The Germans are tightening the noose, launching constant attacks. On December 22nd, they delivered an ultimatum to the American commander, Brigadier General Anthony McCulloch. The demand is simple: surrender or face total annihilation. McCulloch's now famous one-word reply is sent back to the Germans: nuts. It's a defiant, classic American response that electrifies his men and becomes a symbol of the siege. But bravery alone can't hold out forever. They need relief. Patton's forces are closing in, but the fighting is brutal every step of the way. The Germans throw everything they have at the advancing Third Army, determined to prevent them from reaching Bastogne. Every village, every crossroads, becomes a vicious battleground. The men of the 4th Armored Division, leading the charge, face entrenched German infantry and deadly panzer tanks in the frozen landscape. Patton is everywhere, a whirlwind of energy, driving his men forward. He's on the front lines, cajoling, encouraging, and sometimes famously cursing his troops to push harder, move faster. He understood the psychology of his soldiers. They were cold, they were tired, but they responded to his dynamic hands-on leadership. He even famously ordered the Third Army's chaplain to compose a prayer for good weather so his air support could fly. And miraculously, on December 23rd, the skies began to clear. With the weather clearing, the tide begins to turn. C-47 transport planes begin dropping desperately needed supplies to the besieged 101st and Allied fighter bombers, the dreaded Jabos, are unleashed on the German columns, wreaking havoc on their supply lines and armored formations. The German advantage is evaporating. The final push belongs to the 4th Armored Division, specifically a unit commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams CS, the man the M1 Abrams tank is named after. His combat command is spearheading the relief effort. On the day after Christmas, December 26th, after days of non-stop fighting, a column of Sherman tanks from Abrams' 37th Tank Battalion finally breaks through the German lines. They link up with the paratroopers of the 101st at the village of Ascent. On the southern edge of the Bastogne perimeter, the siege is broken. The 101st Airborne is saved. The relief of Bastogne is a critical turning point in the Battle of the Bulge. It stabilized the southern shoulder of the German salient and marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's last great gamble in the West. Patton's bold move was a masterpiece of military command, logistics, and sheer willpower. He moved more troops, further and faster than any other commander had believed possible. His critics called him reckless, but his audacity saved the 101st and arguably shortened the war. It cemented his legacy as one of history's great battlefield commanders, a general who saw opportunity in crisis and who was willing to risk everything for a decisive victory. The march of the Third Army remains one of the most remarkable operational feats in the history of warfare, a testament to the incredible determination of the American soldier and the controversial genius who led them. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories like this, and let me know in the comments what you think about Patton's famous decision. We'll see you in the next one.